Welcome to the Nutrition Collaborative podcast, where we cut through the noise, bust the myths, and bring you nothing but truth about health, fitness, and everything in between. I'm Alec Moore, dietitian, and each week we'll dive into what really works when it comes to achieving lasting health and fitness. No gimmicks, no BS, just real talk, real success stories, and a holistic approach to living your healthiest life. Whether you're here for practical tips, inspiration from real client journeys, or just to find out what's actually worth your time, this is the podcast for you. Let's break it down, get empowered, and focus on what truly matters for your health. Alrighty, and we are back with another episode of the NC podcast. This is a fun one. This is our first one with a guest, and that special guest is Steven Chinos, dietitian, coach, recently joined the NC squad as a coach himself. And I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. I want to open it up to him for an intro, but I want to welcome the NC community to Steven, and I want to welcome Steven to the NC community.
Yeah, appreciate that, Alec. Happy to be here. So like you mentioned, relatively new coach who joined Nutrition Collaborative, and I mean, it's been a long time coming, and I'm really excited to grow with you guys and grow as a business as well. Personally, there's a lot to unpack and do. So a little bit about me: I'm a dietitian as well. I became one in 2022, and so I'm going on for 3 years at the end of this month now.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, I was 2021, so dude, blink and it's scary fast. Like those CEUs, I gotta really lock in on those because my 5-year cycle is up in like March, so like 9 months or something.
Yeah,
got to get in there.
I know I gotta lock in too. To kind of continue on, just a little bit of my background. What's interesting about me is I started off as a pre-med major, right? Biology. I wanted to become a doctor, get into the medical field. But during that journey is when I ended up losing weight on my own. So I have my own personal story. I lost 80 pounds, and I have kept that off for 5+ years already.
It's incredible.
So I bring that experience to the table. I've been in the trenches, is what I tell everyone. I've been in the trenches, so I know exactly what you're feeling. So I've been able to keep that off for 5-6 years now, and just did my first bodybuilding competition last year, which was super fantastic, and it was a surreal experience. But it's been a journey primarily uphill. I've had my downfalls, but it's been an uphill journey for sure.
Absolutely.
I know that with time, we're going to unpack new goals, reach new goals, and with that, impact more lives, impact more clients who are in my shoes, right? Who are trying to figure it out on their own.
Absolutely.
Because if it was possible for me, it's possible for anyone.
100%.
Here on this earth, that's my mission, to get people in their best self, physically and mentally.
And that's why I wanted you here with NC, because we believe in the same stuff, and the best part of it all is planning it all out for the client or the patient and showing them well in advance like where they can be with this like phasic approach, and not just jumping right into like fat loss or whatever, if that is the goal, right? That's a lot of what we're going to actually dive into today, of course, with the foundations of fat loss, or the foundations for fat loss. But that's the NC way. And I'm just stoked to have you here and to help facilitate the NC way in as many people as you'd like. There is no limit to what you can do. And like I said, I've been watching you for 2 years, 3 years, for a while now, and I've never been disappointed in the education you provide, and in the manner that you do it, the digestible way that you do it, and your client's success speaks for it all. Without further ado, man, let's go ahead and dive on in. I'm stoked to have you here. This is just episode 1 together. I feel like we're probably gonna really enjoy this conversation and want to do more of these. But let's go ahead and dive in. The big thing I want to talk about today is foundations for fat loss with habits, with setting yourself up for success early. So preparing for the fat loss, not just saying, hey, I'm going to start this new diet now. Here we go. Like, there's no preparation in those situations. And I want to kind of let the people get informed, understand that there is a very methodical, or should be a methodical approach to how we lose body fat and keep it off, right? Like you mentioned, with that 5 to 6 years is incredible. That's a proven system now to say that it's not coming back. You're not letting that 80 pounds come back, and you have all that muscle now too, right? That you've been building with strength trainings. Let's go ahead and dive right in here. Let's talk about the beginning of it all. I want to ask you, what do you think is I guess, the most important thing at the very beginning? If somebody says, hey, I want to lose weight, what is like the number one thing that you want to tell them so bad as soon as they ask you that has to do with that preparation that we were talking about?
Yeah.
What would you
First
say?
thing, yeah. First thing we discuss is the fact that we have to earn the right to diet, and that is simply getting consistent with a couple of habits for a little more than 2-3 months.
Mm-hmm.
That is where we're going to see, we're likely going to see some progress there. But until we actually get consistent, getting used to the fact that we have to track our calories every day, weigh in daily, track our water daily, something we normally don't do,
Mm-hmm.
stick to the gym schedule that we have set for ourselves, right? If we can't go 5-6 days, then let's bring it down to 3 days and let's get consistent with that first. So until we're able to actually get consistent across the board, we'll then move into a fat loss phase. I kind of want to preface this right now. Like, sometimes what I see often is that when we start dialing in a little bit at the beginning, we sometimes see changes in our body composition start happening
Big
without
time.
even officially being in a fat loss phase. So
Oh yeah.
like the prerequisites are just dialing in a little bit and getting consistent. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, with your habits, with your hydration, with your sleep, with just self-recognition, right? Like understanding where you are in your week, understanding how much water you've had today, understanding how many steps you've had today. Like it's like an awareness stage and a consistency building stage, right? Because that's the thing. If we just dive into a fat loss, quote unquote fat loss phase without setting the tone of what's going to help keep the longevity aspect of that in check and on track, you're gonna crash and burn. You're gonna feel all over the place. It's not gonna be systematic. The logistics are gonna be all over the place. We have to set that first foundation with, just as boring as that sounds, right? It sounds so boring. Like, we don't have that magic potion. We don't have that magical formula. No, it's because it doesn't need to be all this like magic. It's way simpler than that. Structure, consistency in the beginning, understanding your sleep, understanding your stress, understanding what's realistic for me too, right? Is it realistic for me to go to the gym 7 days a week? Probably not. Is it realistic to do 75 hard, or say I'm going to do this for 40 days? Why are we looking that far into the future? We should be focused on right now, today, this week, daily. Not about all those other crazy extracurriculars. We just don't need to. And so it's not really about waiting forever, right? But developing them strongly in the beginning, and then you just like almost like start to unravel this like momentum. It's just like every week goes by and you're like, whoa, we flew through that week, and I wasn't in my head like fat loss, fat loss, fat loss, but my whole body composition in 7 days, I lost a half inch off my waist and I feel more confident. Like, what's going to happen during the weight loss phase, like, or the fat loss phase? Like, holy crap, right? So I love that you mentioned that. Speaking of boring, let's kind of let's kind of talk about that. Like, the power of consistency and repetition. Like, what does that do? Even though it's not sexy, it's not, polarizing or anything like that. Let's dive into that. Like, what do we mean with boring? What are the boring things of setting yourself up for fat loss? Like, what does that look like, I guess?
Yeah. So in today's like day and age, we're marketed all these magic pills, right? Recently, I saw a reel talking about L-carnitine, like drink a little bit of this and watch your belly fat go down. I'm like,
Yeah.
people are looking for that solution, that quick fix,
Mm-hmm.
and they completely avoid advice that actually works. And that advice is freaking boring. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's freaking boring, but if it's boring advice, it's advice that likely works.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? Boring advice? I have it listed here on this roadmap to success that I normally share with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
Tracking your food. Things we already mentioned earlier. Tracking your food. Checking in with your coach every single week. Weighing in every single day.
So communication, big one there on
Yeah.
communication.
Hydrating. Making sure we're getting, maybe 80 to 100 ounces of water per day. Getting to the gym consistently.
Yep.
Making sure that we're sleeping 7+ hours per night.
Yeah.
Stress management. Maybe
But
that's
that's so
going up.
boring. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear what's going to give me 20 pounds off in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That I can just blink and let it happen. That's the problem. And so I love that. So the first thing with the foundations was structure and consistency. And then listening to boring sound advice, because it's good advice, because that's going to be your driving factor for all your success moving forward, is the structure, consistency that you can live up to, right? Not Bill down the street or Sally down the corner, like that. It's for you. And it's oftentimes boring. So what are we doing with these like this very beginning stages of the foundations of letting the boring be the boring and just entering a phase without it having a domain or like a name or a category of fat loss, of structure and consistency? What are we doing? What's that doing to the body? If we can kind of educate us on why are we doing that? What's that setting up for the individual?
So getting consistent with that boring advice is what I like to call priming the body, right? The priming phase, because we're priming for an easy, efficient fat loss down the road, right? So during this priming phase, maybe we evaluated calories a little bit. Maybe it's in your best interest to like reverse the calories a little bit as we increase our activity levels, because if we're eating more food prior to jumping into a fat loss phase, it's going to be a little bit more sustainable, being able to eat a tiny bit more food and losing weight at the same time. So this
Mm-hmm.
priming phase is what's helping our metabolism get ready for that fat loss phase. And
Mm-hmm.
the way our metabolism gets efficient is by all the habits we just talked about. That's
Mm-hmm.
the metabolism. That's how we make fat loss super, super efficient. Because at the end of the day, like if we're struggling trying to lose fat right off the get-go,
Mm-hmm.
it's likely because we haven't been consistent with all these habits we just talked about. Like we're missing the mark there. We're trying to do or add this next thing to hopefully speed up the fat loss, when sometimes we just got to take a step back and
Yeah.
look at how we're executing on those things.
You
So
nailed it.
we're priming the body.
Priming the body, and yeah, priming the body, priming the mind, priming the metabolism to endure something like this and have something to kind of pull from. That way you're not just like starting out at 800 calories a day, which I would never recommend anyways. But, you mentioned metabolism, and I kind of want to go down that rabbit hole because I think metabolism is often very misunderstood, even though it's very simple. Because people think that they have this like genetic, just like they when they're born, they're like, well, I either have a fast one or a slow one. And there's really, I want to help the people understand that metabolism is not this like mystical thing that some people are gifted with and some people aren't. There is a genetic component, sure, but the majority of it is what you had mentioned with the structural component at the beginning: eating consistent protein. Why? Thermic effect of food. The more protein you eat, more calories you burn. Strength training. You mentioned strength training. Muscle, essentially, right? So people don't have a slow metabolism. They're not eating enough protein and they don't have enough muscle on their bodies, right? Muscle and protein, as bodybuilder-esque as that sounds, or bro-y as that sounds, and kind of boring, right? That's what makes up your metabolism. Not just protein intake, but protein has the greatest effect, right? So we have protein intake for metabolism. We have the amount of muscle mass that you have increasing your metabolic rate so that you can eat more food and still lose the fat, right? That's another reason for the priming. And since we're on the topic of metabolism, I love this little tidbit. It is so crazy how your exercise, your forced exercise or your dedicated exercise is actually the least impactful the exercising itself is the least impactful on metabolism. It only makes up about 10%, right? 5 to 10%.
That's true.
But then there's the BMR, so muscle mass. and just existing. The thermic effect of food, of course. But then the one that really stands out to me is the non-exercise stuff. Like me sitting here fidgeting, me picking at my beard, me, looking at my dogs or playing with my dogs, cleaning the floor, right? Doing the dishes, walking to the grocery store or through the grocery store around the gym. That is a significant part of metabolism. So that's also what we want to be priming in the beginning with the foundations too. But the point I wanted to make is that metabolism is not this mystical thing. It is made up of those four things, four components. So if you can master all four of those in this priming phase, you're golden. You're setting yourself up for long-term success. Is just understanding what metabolism is. So that's what I wanted to dive into. But what else creates a fat burning machine, Stephen? Have you noticed in your work, outside of those things we just talked about with like priming, priming the body, priming the metabolism, what else would you say helps keep this thing going?
Yeah. I like that you mentioned non-exercise activity thermogenesis, the NEAT, which is a great component of our metabolism.
Oh, yeah.
So there's this thing called getting your steps in, all right, that we implement into our clients' protocols. And although non-exercise, let me rephrase this. Although NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis, yes, getting steps, walking, it may be considered a form of exercise. But what we find is that as we trickle into a weight loss phase, without us realizing it, as calories go down, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis goes down a little bit. We stop fidgeting as much. We're tired, so we sit around a lot more often. So now we're not expending random energy throughout the day. So that's why we implement a step goal. Maybe it's at the bare minimum 7,500 steps just to get those calories burning, right? So that once we actually enter a fat loss phase, we're already moving the body. We're already expending quite a bit of energy.
Yep.
So setting a step goal for yourself, or maybe you can't get outside. Maybe you can't, reach your step goal by going out for a walk or something like that. Maybe you're dedicating some kind of cardio regimen to your routine. Maybe that's 30 minutes on the bike before a workout. Maybe that's your cardio regimen if you can't simply hit a step goal. But bare minimum, we're establishing a step goal so that we just keep that energy expenditure up a little bit, knowing that as
a baseline
as we lose weight, it's going to be a little harder to burn energy naturally.
So if that's upregulated, but the food comes down, that's where we get that sweet spot. Yeah. Okay. What would you say sleep and stress? Two undervalued, chronically undervalued, widely undervalued areas of fat loss. Tell us a little bit more there, if you can, as it pertains to like creating this fat burning machine.
Yeah. And yet, like you said, it's greatly undervalued. People overlook it and they feel like if I do more work, I'm going to get more results. Sometimes you got to slow down to then speed up. So if you're getting 4 hours of sleep per night because you're trying to wake up extra early, or you're pushing a workout late into the evening, and you're sacrificing sleep, that's likely a reason why weight loss tends to stall. Stress levels are up, even though you don't actually feel it. You notice you step on the scale every morning after only sleeping 4 hours, and weight is up 2 pounds. Did you actually gain fat? Not likely, but you probably have some kind of inflammation going due to the stress of not sleeping enough. So that's why, we dial in on sleep, which nonetheless ties into stress management.
100%. Yeah.
So making sure that that's nicely tackled, we'll be able to make a ton of progress heading into a fat loss phase. So it kind of goes back to the point of, if we're not priming this area of our lifestyle, it's probably going to be hard to lose weight down the road.
I see it all the time. I'm sure you do too. It's far too common. Folks will, come to you eating real low food, and they can't get any weight loss off. They are working a labor intensive job. They have a couple kids and they just are chronically stressed to the max. Not just like stress isn't just, again, like this mystical, it's a real thing. Physical, emotional, mental, it all plays a part. You only have one stress bucket. So that is something we have to manage and take care of in the very beginning, in conjunction with all those other things, the hydration, the protein consistency, the strength training. So regimented literally with all of those things, including the stress and the sleep, because it's again systematic. And if you don't have those systems in place, you can do all that activity you want, but the body's not primed. The body's not a well-oiled fat burning machine. So it's about all of those components, right? Not just the fitness and the exercise and the low eating or the deficit. It's also comes down to how your body recovers from all of that. And that's through stress, proper stress management, which is hard to learn, and sleep.
Oh yeah,
Because
definitely.
so many people perceive stress like every little thing is like like the end of the world, right? So we have to kind of rewire some things if that is the case and just get that under control. And you can't get that under control if you're jumping straight into a fat loss phase. Like you run around with your head cut off. You don't know what is left from right, up to down. Like, so that has to be addressed. Huge topics here. This is all good stuff. So we first talked about the foundation of earning the right to diet, or earning the right to lose fat by creating and setting the tone with structure and consistency in all of these facets, and then priming the body through that consistency to be able to handle or endure a fat loss deficit and not go crazy, or not make stress go off the root, or way off the charts, or to have hair falling out, or those symptoms and types of things. So really gearing yourself, the foundations of fat loss is getting yourself ready for the fat loss and all of these different components, not just jumping onto a program or a challenge to lose fat, because it will come to an end quicker than you want, and you're going to fall short of the goal that you wanted in the first place. So why even try? If you're not going to get there at all, and you know that ahead of time, why even start, right? That's how I look at it. So let's talk about just a couple more things here. Let's talk about, maybe I kind of want to talk about the durations here, like what to expect. So what would you say, and obviously it's very individualized for every single person, but what would you say is good for like an estimated time frame on the priming phase, and then maybe an estimated time frame on a proper fat loss phase itself, like weeks wise?
Yeah.
How many weeks are we looking at?
Yeah, so just based off, my own personal experience with my clients, I find that a foundational phase that lasts roughly 1 to 8 weeks, right? And then maybe we do another month of just maintaining that,
Mm-hmm.
right? That I think that sets us up for a good fat loss phase. So
Absolutely.
in some, that's what, 8, 9, 10, 11, yeah, 12 weeks in total, if anything, right? So that's what, 3 months, I think, of priming. Yeah, it may seem a little boring, not losing weight, because that was your overall goal, jumping into our program, right? Or
Yeah.
jumping into any program.
Yeah.
But that's how you can make sustainable progress down the road, and lasting progress.
Mm-hmm.
Fat loss forever. And once we're into a fat loss phase, it's all individualized, but generally 12 to 20 weeks is what I see is an efficient weight loss phase. You don't want to be in a fat loss phase forever. It's only a temporary thing. So if we're giving ourselves 12 to 20 weeks, that means it's going to be an efficient fat loss,
Mm-hmm.
assuming that we've already done the bulk of the work ahead of time.
Yep.
Right. So
Yep.
yeah, those would be just the durations of
Yep.
those phases.
It's methodical, it's systematic, and it's phasic. And it just makes sense in the long term. But folks just have such a hard time seeing that in the beginning, because that's not result. And they just want result now, but that's result forever when you do it that way. Well, we are definitely on the same page with our strategies and methodologies. So this is great. There's another thing I kind of want to talk about there. May or may not have lost it. Oh, so say you have like 80 pound to 100 pound, or someone over like 20, 25 pounds, essentially. That's obviously not just going to be one fat loss phase, right? So this priming, another thing to look at is like, how much do you have to lose? So this priming may actually be priming you for years of success. Well, it's going to be success either way, but years of continued weight loss success. So maybe you have like a 8 to 12 week primer phase, acclimation phase, priming phase, whatever you want to call it. And then I like 8 to 10 weeks there. And then, depending on where they come from, And then 14 to 18 weeks for, and you said 12 to 20 is perfect. 14 to 18 weeks for a fat loss phase, depending on the person, of course. But then my favorite thing is the reverse diet after that first diet or first fat loss phase. We are able, if everything's methodical and the adherence is good on the individual, we are able to get those maintenance calories back up without adding the weight back on strategically, gradually through reverse diet. And those are so important to preserve that longevity of that weight loss success. It's everything, dude. Like people will, they'll be like, I want to lose 50 pounds by this time. I'm like, okay, I don't know about that time. We'll get you there, one way or another. I promise. But the magic is made in that middle breaking point where we give your CNS, your psychological health, all of that, and physiological too, a break and get it more fuel, get it more nourishment after being in a deficit. Because if you're in a calorie deficit, you're likely in a nutrient status deficit too, to some degree. So we need to get those cysts because that's going to help the metabolism function well again, the thyroid function again, sex hormones function again well, to then be a fat burning machine again in the next phase, right? So it's like it's like almost another priming phase. It's like a recovery phase and priming phase for your next phase. So it's all phasic. It's all phasic, but it starts with the foundations that we've talked about today. So you nailed it, man. You absolutely nailed it. With those foundations, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about today?
In terms of that, I kind of want to just touch upon just a client that I have.
Love it.
Been able to lose 50 pounds, but this was done over 2 fat loss phases.
Yes.
We're in our 3rd one right now.
Nice.
So the way we approach it is, let's say we're losing some fat over 20 weeks. We're likely spending that same amount of time in that recovery phase, another priming phase, right? Doubling down on all those habits that we've set forth at the very, very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Once, calories are up a little bit, weight hasn't really gone up, and we're essentially back to maintenance calories, we drop calories again. Now the body is primed up again, and it's efficient at fat loss. And then we get the rest of that weight off. Repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
And that composition just gets freakier looking too the whole way. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're never in too long of a deficit to where you're just eating your muscle. So you preserve and build while burning fat. That's the magic right there. And it produces results like 99.9% of the time. So I'm glad you're experiencing the same type of stuff. So what do you want to leave the listeners with today, being the first guest appearance on the NC podcast? What do you want to leave them with today for foundations of fat loss?
Yeah. For those of you listening, or for anyone that's gonna tap in, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple, anything, I want you to really just sit down with yourself, right, and actually ask yourself, am I embodying the person that's successful at losing fat?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing everything you just listened today.
Mm-hmm.
You're tracking your calories diligently. You're weighing in. You're making sure you're getting your lifts in. You're actually pushing hard in the gym. You're getting your hydration on right. You're handling stress. Everything we talked about. Are you executing on that to the best of your ability?
Mm-hmm.
Are you at least 1% better every single day? And if not, then we likely have some work to do. So it's not that the plan doesn't work. It's likely that you're not executing the way you need to on those habits. So sit down with yourself and just make a commitment to focus on dialing in a tad bit.
Yep. Absolutely. Embodying, that's a great point. Embodying, almost like look around, look at those who are succeeding with their weight loss. What are they doing? They're not sitting around. They're not, they're not skipping sessions. They're not, laying on the couch until 3 p.m. They are taking advantage of every moment of the day, right, to propel this thing forward for themselves. So embody that, guarantee that you're going to see a difference in composition, in your weight loss efficiency, and long-term success with keeping that off, like you did with 80 freaking pounds in a 5 to 6 year period. That's incredible. Or held it off for 5 to 6 years. That's incredible. So, and you're doing it for all your clients. And my favorite part is that we're dietitians. I love the ones who, I've lost weight before, and so I can coach everybody. Okay, well, it's when you pair the experience with education, that's the magic right there. So I appreciate the heck out of you today, man. Happy Friday. Hope you have a great weekend. We're blessed to have you here as a coach and an educator, and it is just the beginning, so welcome aboard, welcome to the community. We'll definitely be doing this again.
Yep. No, I appreciate the time, and I'll be back.
Absolutely. Thanks, brother.
Of course. Yeah.
Talk to you soon, buddy. Thanks, guys, for listening.